Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Carla Cabrera Carrera. I am the district manager here at Bronx Community Board 7. And today, conducting a presentation on zoning and land use and other city planning tools is the New York City Department of City Planning. And with that, we'll move on to the team presenting themselves and then beginning the presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carla. My name is, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Cesar Delgado. I am Senior Urban Designer, Lead Planner, and DCP Liaison at the DCP Bronx office, the liaison at Community Board 7 also. And I'm here with Paul Phillips, which is the director of DCP Bronx office, and also Alvaro Munoz, who is a team leader at DCP's office too. They are going to be here for the Q&A session to talk to you also, but I'm going to be the one presenting, so I'm gonna start if that's okay, Carla. Yeah. Well,
yes,
everyone.
Unless we wanted to hear from Phillips and everyone else. Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. My name is Paul Phillips. I'm the board director here, the Bronx Office of City Planning, and just want to thank you all for the opportunity and looking forward to Q&A at the end.
All right. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you again for joining us. We are excited to be here with Bronx Community Board 7. We are representing the Bronx office of the New York City Department of City Planning. I am here responding to a request made by the community district manager to talk about land use, zoning, and planning tools used by the Department of City Planning, also known as DCP. Our goal today is to demystify zoning, share how it affects neighborhoods, and explain how residents and different stakeholders are part of the planning processes. I want to start by explaining this presentation's objectives. We'll give an overview of what the Department of City Planning does. I'm going to explain zoning, its origins, and the current function, discuss the development process in New York City, and look at how and why zoning changes over time. Whether you're a resident, developer, or community board member, understanding these tools is key to shaping your neighborhood's future. Specifically, we will cover the sections you see on the screen. Number one, what is DCP and what do we do? What is zoning and where does it come from? Number three, zoning today, its purpose, what it regulates, and the paths to development. Number four, how the zoning laws work and who enforces them. And number five, we will talk about how and why does zoning change. The Department of City Planning plans for the future of New York City, working to create thriving and dynamic neighborhoods with access to housing and jobs, resilient infrastructure, and vibrant public realm. DCP is responsible for the land use and environmental review processes in New York City. We create plans and policies that aim to make our city more livable, inclusive, and sustainable. Importantly, while we guide development, we are not an enforcement agency. That role lies with the Department of Buildings and other city entities. What we do a little bit more specifically? We work to ensure neighborhoods are vibrant, resilient, and provide access to housing and open spaces. We collaborate with many groups, from city agencies to community boards like yours, to help make informed, equitable planning decisions. Specifically, we catalyze neighborhood improvement. We encourage housing production, affordability, and quality. We promote economic development and job growth. We work on enhanced resiliency and sustainability of neighborhoods. We ensure integrity, timeliness, and responsiveness in land use reviews. And we supply objective data and expertise on a broad range of planning functions and stakeholders. All that we do is grounded in five strategic pillars: inclusive planning, sustainability, housing access, economic opportunity, and informed decision-making. These principles guide everything that we do, from citywide policy to the smallest rezoning proposals that we're going to talk a little bit more in the next slides. It is important to start clarifying that zoning is only one tool that we use as a city, and DCP is in charge of it. But DCP has various planning tools. In fact, zoning is also a division within DCP that we have in the department. But we have 13 divisions, 5 borough offices, and many other teams that work together on the different tools that we have to plan for the city for all. Among the other divisions, there are the environmental review, the capital planning division, the housing division, transportation, urban design, climate, and among others. The main planning tools that we use include citywide text amendments, neighborhood studies, and private rezoning applications. For example, for citywide text amendments, we recently completed together with you the City of Yes for carbon neutrality, for economic opportunity, and for housing opportunity. For neighborhood studies, you may be familiar with the Bronx Metro North, the Jerome Avenue neighborhood, and the Southern Boulevard study. And for private applications, for example, the ongoing process with the Kingsbridge Armory and the Fortham Landing project. We are currently working on several applications like the Kingsbridge Armory and the Fortham Landing to align future development with community needs and citywide goals. Okay, so now that we understand a little bit more about what DCP is and what we do, I'm going to start talking about what is zoning and where does it come from. Zoning has its beginnings in the early regulation of the built environment, which began in response to cities' rapid population growth at the end of the 19th century. This is 1840 through the 1900s. So rapid population growth was paired with buildings with inadequate light, air, and open space, and no separation of uses. There were no controls for where uses were permitted and where. This, of course, led to a public health crisis and a lot of pressure from the public, and early reformers led to establishment of early regulations in tenement buildings. New York City zoning was born out of a need to manage population density and ensure access to light and air. In 1916, the zoning resolution was born to basically two things. Number one, to shape the form of the buildings so they allowed for sunlight and air. And number two, to separate uses to prevent encroachment of manufacturing into residential areas. In the screen, you can see what triggered the first version of the zoning resolution. There was the uses were not separated. The city started seeing manufacturing right next to residential. There were fumes of this manufacturing immediately affecting residents, doing other activities that were nothing to do with the manufacturing. There were buildings that didn't have enough air or lights like the ones that you see on the screen. And then as a result of the 1960 resolution, buildings changed in form to respond to concerns of light and air. Examples of the buildings that directly responded to it look like the ones that you see on the screen that you may be familiar with. They are the Paramount Building and the New Yorker Building. They are called like wedding cake buildings. They were the first that responded entirely to this set of rules to ensure that there was light and air and they were not casting too much shadow to the streets and separated the uses back then. Fast forward to the years following World War II, we saw shifting development trends towards suburbanization and an increasing understanding of the importance of open space. Concepts like tower in the park and urban renewal started appearing. The provisions of the 1916 zoning resolution were becoming obsolete, and it was becoming increasingly in need of an update, and it was rewritten in 1961. It was basically based on the original tower in the park to prioritize open space too, and focus on the open space ratio, like what is built and what is not, to have this balance. So let's keep talking about zoning today. What is it for? It essentially establishes a framework for appropriate development. It lays out specific rules for what uses can take place on a piece of property and what kinds of buildings can be constructed there. We created an updated zoning in the interest of protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of the users of a city. On these maps that you can see on the screen, you see a number of colors. Those are different uses. In the upper portion, I use map of the entire city, and in the lower section, a map of CBA. In both cases, we are seeing industrial and manufacturing uses in purple, residential uses in yellow, commercial uses in red, and parks in green. Some uses are compatible and some are not. And zoning is a tool that allows for thoughtful planning around what sorts of uses are compatible with each other. And it's a constant progress. Not the fact that they are there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are already perfectly compatible. It's a process of many years of development, of course. So a little bit of what zoning does, and more specifically, zoning regulates what can be built and where, covering number one, the use of land. Where can a school be, a store, housing, etc.? That's use of land. Also, the building sizes, heights, widths, etc. Open space, where and how. Number of dwelling units, that's the number of residences that a building can host. Yard requirements, meaning the spaces in between the property limit and the building itself, and also the amount of parking. It is important to remember what zoning doesn't do. Zoning doesn't actually build something. Also, zoning generates development. Zoning doesn't generate development if local conditions are not favored for the development. We can establish a zoning district and encourage housing, but if the development and the local conditions are not adequate for development, it won't, and zoning cannot push for it. It also doesn't require to tear down any existing structure. I would like to take the time to go through some basic key terms that will help understand better what zoning is and what we are talking about. Number one, zoning. Specifically, it's the legal framework that governs how land can be used and developed. It's a framework, it's a tool. What is a rezoning? It is when the zoning of a particular area changes, no matter to what district. It's called a rezoning. ULURP, I'm pretty sure many people are familiar with it, with the term. It means Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, and it's a standardized public review process that is used to evaluate and approve major land use changes. What is an use? It refers to the purpose for which a building, a structure, or tract of land is designed, arranged, intended, or maintained. And we already talked a little bit about those. There is commercial district uses, there is manufacturing uses, there is a school is a different use, a residence is a different use. Let's go deeper into that. Residential uses is the use of a building or part of a building for dwelling purposes, meaning it is intended for people to live in as their home or place of residence. And a commercial use is any retail, service, or office use. Let's continue with these terms. Community facility use is a use that provides educational, health, recreational, religious, or other essential services for the community that it serves. And last but not least, the manufacturing use are activities involved in the production, assembly, or processing of goods. And I see that I'm skipping density, and I'm going to talk about it. Density is the maximum number of dwelling units permitted on a zoning lot. And then we have floor to area ratio, or FAR. I'm pretty sure many of you are also familiar with it. And it limits, it's a tool that limits the total floor area of a building that can have in relation to the size of the lot. Let's talk a little bit more about this. An example is on the graphic on the right. I'm showing an illustration of how FAR affects building shape and height. Even if the FAR is the same on this image, the design can vary. This flexibility allows planners to respond to neighborhood context. This is the same amount of built area, but in different shapes, and is respecting the one FAR as an example. And then a couple of more terms. Bulk, I'm pretty sure you've heard of it, is the set of regulations that control the size, shape, and placement of a building in a zoning lot. And city map is the official legal map of New York City that shows the location, width, and alignment of streets and highways, public parks, public places, transit rights of way, easements, and certain waterfronts and other elements related to public infrastructure. And the mapping action is any change of to that city map. To conclude the key terms, I want to remind you that New York City has three main zoning district types: the residential, which we represent with the letter R, the commercial, that we represent with letter C, and the manufacturing, that we represent with letter M. Each one has subcategories. For example, R1 through R12 now, allowing for finer control over development intensity and use. The example on the screen is C47, where C refers to commercial use, the 4 refers to the intensity, and the 7 to the density. Let's move on to the different pathways to development, or different ways that a site can be developed. There are three primary development paths. As of right, those are projects that follow existing zoning rules and don't require additional approvals. For example, a rezoning, they don't require it. And then another path is projects that may require review through ULURP or seek variations through the Board of Standards and Appeals if hardships are demonstrated. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more in detail in the following slides. Okay, let's get a little bit more deep into the three pathways. In as-of-right construction, a developer may build a structure, and we call it they build as-of-right, if the Department of Buildings is satisfied that the structure complies with the zoning resolution and the building code. So for something to be built, must comply with the zoning resolution and must comply with the building code. Sometimes a developer doesn't need a rezoning or any change to the zoning resolution, and the Department of Buildings tells them, okay, you don't need a rezoning, you're as of right on that end, and let's continue with the process of the Department of Buildings, who is the one who regulates and enforces other stuff that are not related to zoning. Then the other path of development, the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, or as we know it, ULURP, is a public process for evaluating major land uses and changes. It includes the steps of, number one, the certification by the Department of City Planning. I'm gonna point at it just for you guys to follow me. And then the review of the community boards. I'm pretty sure you are familiar with this, and we may not be a lot of in detail this time, but it's usual the community boards to have 60 days of review. It is where the applicant is presenting to the community board, holding a public hearing, and the board votes and creates a recommendation, issuing certain conditions too. After those 60 days, it goes to the borough president, who has 30 days, then to the city planning commission was 60 days. There's also another public hearing, there's a vote, and they issue a report to the city council, where it stays for 50 days for review. And also there is a public hearing and vote. And then there goes to the review and the opportunity to veto for 5 days to the mayor's office. There is many actions that are subject to the ULURP. Some of them are on the screen. For example, changes to the city map, designation or change of zoning districts, CPC special permits, site election for capital projects, revocable consents, RFPs, franchises and mayor concessions, housing and urban renewal plans pursuant to city, state, and federal laws, sanitary or waterfront landfills, disposition of city-owned property, acquisition of real property by the city, and mapping of the subdivisions. When zoning regulations pose a hardship, this is the third part of development. Like, for example, what is a hardship? Like an oddly shaped lot, for example. It's a very simple example, but that is one. The Board of Standards and Appeals can grant a variance. This process is separate from ULURP and requires providing specific findings, including unique physical circumstances, and that the hardship wasn't self-created. Some of the findings are the oddly shapes that I just mentioned, for example, the necessity for reasonable return. Another one would be that will not alter neighborhood character, substantially impair neighborhood uses, or detrimentally affect public welfare. But also variance is minimum necessary to provide relief. So before I move forward, I would like to reiterate the pathways to development. There are as-of-right projects which follow the existing zoning rules and don't require additional approvals, and other projects that may require review through ULURP or seek variances through the Board of Standards and Appeals. But how can I learn about a development that is coming to my neighborhood if someone is not going through the ULURP process, meaning not needing the community board's recommendation? Well, there are public platforms organized by government agencies that contain this information available to the public 24/7. Some of them are SOLA and the New York City Open Data, and also the Department of Buildings platform, or BizWeb, where you can search projects and applications with just their address. There are also private newspapers such as YIMBY, for example, who use the public platforms to find out information they are interested to publish, and they make it available to the public. To voice discontent with a development or request additional municipal services, members of the community board should utilize the community should utilize the community-based needs statement. It is used by all city agencies, or also approach to the community board for guidance. For safety, sanitation, or other immediate needs, you should call 311 to the mayor's office operation, who distributes to the right departments. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how the zoning laws work and who enforces them. The city charter gives authority to the Department of City Planning, who provides technical assistance and develops changes to zoning regulations. Through ULURP, the city charter gives authority to the community boards, the borough president, and the city planning commission, who enacts the zoning map and zoning text changes. And then also, it gives authority to the Department of Buildings, who is the authority to interpret and enforce zoning regulations. And last but not least, the city charter also gives authority to the Board of Standards and Appeals, who has the ability to grant variances in the event that a site is unique and is uniquely difficult to develop, as we just talked about. Why does zoning change? Zoning changes are often made to align land use with future goals. This could mean increasing density near transit, preserving neighborhood character, or supporting new uses. Zoning changes or rezonings happen, number one, to support planning goals and a vision for the future. For example, with the Bronx Metro North, to allow for more and better jobs and control how buildings shape a better built environment. And number two, to allow for a different use, density, and building form. For example, with the Fordham Landing rezoning and Kingsbridge Armory. All zoning changes must go through ULURP before final approval. It is important to remember that zoning is just one of many planning tools that we use to shape the city. And it is only one tool that we use in the Department of City Planning. We combine it with capital planning, data tools, and community input to create more livable, resilient, and inclusive neighborhoods. City planning doesn't work alone. We collaborate closely with many city agencies, including the Department of Housing, the Department of Transportation, New York City Parks, and the Department of Buildings, among many, many others. If you want to explore zoning and planning in your area, these resources are a great starting point. Tools like SOLA and ZAP let you view zoning maps and applications. You can also find population data, capital plans, and more. You can have access to these links by asking for a copy of this presentation that we're going to hand to the community manager, to the district manager, or also contacting us. If you have any questions or want to follow up, there is on the screen the contact details. We're always happy to help explaining zoning, planning, or the tools that we use, and to support your involvement in shaping the community. So here are some points of contact: our website, the zoning help desk that you can call 24/7. You will leave a message and you will get an answer within 48 hours. There's a phone for our central office and also for Bronx office. So thank you very much for having us. Thank you for your attention, and I will open it to questions and answers.